With the work that the transition committee is doing, are you comfortable right now that group is on pace with its many responsibilities, so there is a smooth transition, or do you have concerns about some areas that you think might be looked at?
I think in general, the transition team is on pace with what needs to take place when looking at the personnel code, ethics code, administrative code. I think that there was a lot of work put into those, although they need to be adopted within 4 months, so there's opportunity for some changes there. So I'm happy with that. Obviously, the most important thing is the search for the manager. Right now, Ken Moore, the consultant, as well as HR, have those names, and no names are released until the council-elect will be on. That process, I think it's on pace, but to speak to that point specifically, my opinion is I really don't think that the manager, quote-unquote, the manager will be in place come January 2nd. My reasoning is pretty simple. In order to have someone who has the experience and qualifications and to take this job, most likely they're going to be leaving another job unless they're in the county already or unemployed. And I don't think anybody's going to quit their job until there's an actual vote, which can't take place until January 2nd. So that's a process. Now that leads into another issue, though, although of a concern of mine with the transition, and that's most recent, and I spoke to Jen about this, and that is about these interim positions. The charter, basically, what the charter states is the only positions that need to be put in place come January 2nd will be the manager or temporary manager, as well as the clerk of the county council, as well as you need to still have a sheriff and a coroner. Recently, the transition team went out and put out these interim applications, which if you haven't seen it, I do have. This is basically the application there if you want to take a look at it. That was somewhat, actually, to be honest with you, as I speak today, it's still not even on the website. So the fact is that this is something that the transition has kind of put out to certain people in the county to let them know that there's going to be interim positions. My concern with that is that these are positions, no matter what, the manager will be selecting. But we all know, I think it's fair to say, that anybody who's in interim position has a head start to take on the real positions. And I advocated that this should be put out publicly, advertised in a newspaper. They only agreed to put it on the website. And that's a concern that the transition team, whose job is just to help move forward, should not have any type of involvement with moving people forward, getting involved with this. And so I advocated that this should be held off until after council-elect is involved, because, as I just stated, really don't have that many jobs that need to be in place till January 2nd. So all in all, to answer your question, I think that we are on pace, but I'm just a little bit concerned with that, as well as I think this is a major question, and I really think you should ask this to the other council members. The council-elect who gets involved with the transition, which is based on the charter, do they think that the other transition members who will not be elected should be involved in the manager search? I do not. I'm very adamant that I do not think that the people who will not serve on council should be involved in the interview process or in any of that case. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And actually, I skipped the question that we asked most of the people, because it almost seems not to apply to you, but I guess I should ask anyway. And that is, since your success in the primary in the spring, have you been doing things that you feel are better preparing you for this job, to get more familiar with the operations of the county, or do you think your activity with the transition committee has really covered a lot of that already? Well,
I think that my activity and working with the transition has helped me. Again, I think that just understanding the codes, understanding the process, the transition. I've been very involved. The one thing I'm paying very close attention to is the budget. And the truth is, when they had the budget meeting, there were only 3 candidates, myself and 2 others, who went there pretty much all day long and listened to and I'm proud of that. And that, to me, is one of the most important things. As you know, the county right now is looking at a $23 million deficit. The commissioners are saying they're not going to raise taxes. So I want to pay close attention to how this budget is going to be handed over, because realistically, the council-elect only has 45 days council has only 45 days to change this budget. And you're talking a brand new structure. And that's what's unique about this. And I think that where I have some experience, it's not like going on to a school board or council where the wheels are already in motion. Come January 2nd, you're starting from scratch. And that's something I've been through with the study commission as well as the transition. And, you know, to be able to really take 11 people and fully understand this budget and to try to make major changes if they hand over a budget that is not something that we're really that's going to have to make us make tough decisions. It's going to be tough to go back in there and find ways to cut.
So you were able to sit through all those budget hearings?
I sat through probably 80% of it that day. Yeah.
Okay. If elected and you're serving on this council, how much time do you expect to dedicate to the council job?
As much as I've been doing for the last 2.5 years. You know, the charter says that you know, you're required two meetings a month. It's going to be more than that. You know, what I would suspect is that in a council that you're going to be broken into subcommittees of some sort and have some kind of responsibilities. And I think that's where, and what I would see, and I think the best way of breaking in those subcommittees would be there's basically six divisions. And I think an easy way to break this members apart are to be involved with those 6 divisions now within the county and to have maybe involvement with those divisions. And so especially early on there's going to be a lot. But you know, let me say this too while you're on it. I've made it clear I'm not going to be taking a salary if I'm elected for 2 reasons. Number one, because I helped to write the charter, I just think it's ethical to, I don't want anybody to say, well, you wrote it and you put in a salary even though it's $8,000. And secondly, quite honestly, I'm not doing this because of the money. Knock on wood, I'm happy where I'm at in my career. But this, you know, this is a public service, and it's not something that I need.
And again, if you're serving on that council, do you think it's appropriate to have a daily or weekly presence in the courthouse? Or would you have another method of allowing the public and the county employees, quite frankly, to get a hold of you?
Well, I think that to answer your question, to have access, I think all councils should have their phone numbers and on the website so people can. But to be in there during the week, or a weekly basis, understand that the council's job is not to dictate or to go in there and to run. And those are some of the things we specifically put into this, into some of the codes. So that, you know, you cannot, I would not want anyone to be going in there and dictating to the manager or some of the department heads. So it's very, and that ties into maybe 2 other things. Number one, the clerk to county council. This was a little bit of a debate on the, with the transition. I believe this is a very important position because this person is going to be the eyes and ears of the county, and communication is going to be key with that. Some people think that's just more of a secretarial job, and it really isn't. This is a person who will be basically communicating the discussions and votes of council to the people within the county. So that's something. But bottom line is communication is very important there. One thing, well, before I forget too, that I'm going to propose, and I'm proud that I proposed it with the study commission, I would like to see the county meetings all live via the web. You know, that will help to open up communication throughout the county. It was done at a very low cost for just a couple $100, even for the press. You know, times you can't cover everything. You could sit in the office and watch the meetings online to see what's going on. I think that's important. That'll help being more transparent.
Again, if elected, you're serving on this group. Would you vote to approve the hiring of a relative to a county authority, a board, or a commission?
You know what? At this point in time, because of the circumstances of what we've been through, the answer is no. You know, we have to change the image. And again, going back to the manager search, I want to make it clear I'm adamant about, I do feel that the names of the applicants should be made public. Again, coming from the business background, I understand business and I realize that, but this is government, taxpayers are the shareholders, and I do think that the names should be released publicly, all of them.
And just to clarify, you kind of qualified your answer and said at this point in time it's not appropriate. Do you feel there would be an appropriate time to hire a relative to a county authority board or commission?
Do I think, again, I guess you look at that and you could say it's reverse discrimination or reverse nepotism to say if someone's qualified. I just think that there are a lot of good people out there, and the best thing we could do is to try to avoid that. And I think that any relative should have the respect of any council member to not want to put their name in the hat because of that. Just so. So I hope I answered. I guess I'm saying no.
Do you feel you bring a particular skill set to this council if you're part of it? A legal background, an understanding of budgeting, having been involved in labor negotiations, those types of things? Yeah,
and I truly feel, although there are a lot of good candidates, and I'm happy to see that, I do feel that I bring some uniqueness to the table that others don't. Number one, I'm the only candidate who's been involved with this whole process from the beginning, both with the study commission as well as the transition. I've been involved with over 100 meetings. I've interviewed, been involved interviewing, looking at other counties, home rule municipalities, understanding what works, what doesn't, as well as here with Luzerne County. Been involved with the transition, realistically understanding the transition process and how it's going to work, what's going to happen, what's not going to, and realizing the big picture of this government. It's not going to take place over time. So, number one, the experience that I have had over the last 2.5 years, you can't. I believe that certainly adds value versus someone who just reads the charter. Secondly, again, when you take a look at the council, going back to your question about managing the county, the major role of this council is being overseers. It's like a board of directors, and one of the major duties is handling the budget. My background's in finance. I have a degree from Villanova in finance. I have a master's degree in finance. Most of my career has been in financial services. I've owned my own business. I was on the school board in Hazleton. Here's a budget that was over $100 million, very similar to the county budget. So I've been through those processes where I've negotiated contracts, worked with contractors, and again, I understand the budgets, and that's where people come in and they're saying, I'm not raising taxes. I don't want to raise taxes, but I don't know what's going to come, and you have to bring realistic expectations. I understand bonds, I understand refinancing. So I feel, to answer your question, I feel that between my experience with the home rule, as well as my background in finance, that's what makes me really different than a lot of the other candidates.
On the subject of the county and the budget, that's going to be probably one of the biggest hurdles for this group initially, is to come up with a workable plan. Do you having sat through the meetings that you've been in terms of the budgeting this year, do you have specific ideas for areas where you think money can be saved? On the flip side of that, do you think the county's missing out on opportunities for revenues anyway? Well,
a couple things. Here's where I think the opportunities to save money, and it may not be soon, but it's over time. Number one, we have to refinance. I think that actually the commissioners are right now going to Moody's trying to look at a higher rating, but you have to get the rating in the county better. You got to get that to move up, as well as to be able to refinance. And one of the problems, if you look at the debt in the past, what people do is when they go out and they put out a bond issue, they tend to lower it at the beginning, and then it staggers, and that's what's happened right now. I think that the debt increased like $3 million because of a staggering. And so somehow you also have to look at the future and maybe level out refinancing. So number one, it's refinancing. Number two, as I wrote a letter to the editor, we immediately out of the gates need to have a good working relationship with the judicial side. Even though they control the budget, they're responsible. And I think with 6 new judges, to find ways to cut, again, I do think that all county employees should follow the personnel and ethics code, which is another subject, but I think that certainly the judicial side. No question, the prison. I don't have the answer, but that's something that I think that the manager needs to come in with. What I would like to see with the manager is to come in with a 5-year plan. I mean, right now we have 1,700 employees, and again, I understand, and 1,300, 1,350 are union, but if you could put together a plan and saying, listen, we need to, in order to get this county to be efficient. And I don't like to use the word smaller, but it's efficient. And efficient is about going from 1,700 to X employees over a 5-year plan. And this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to move in that direction to do this. It's not going to happen overnight. So I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. Revenue is down, I think, 14 million, what I saw before. There are areas in the county that they need to look at possibly increasing the fees to generate more revenue. I also think, and this is a side note, one of the positions someone needs to look at is community development of economic development. I really think that the county's missing out probably on a lot of grants and ways to generate revenue throughout the county. And I think that's something that it should be somewhat of a responsibility of the county working with other municipalities.
What do you feel is the county's responsibility in funding outside organizations, things such as public libraries?
You know, right now we do. Jen, I think, wrote an article not too long ago about the libraries coming and their funds were cut. I've seen that up in the Hazleton area. I think they cut over $200,000. I think right now I'd have to say that you have an obligation to continue that, but I think I would probably I would view that as going back to that 5-year plan that the manager would have to put together and say, you know, if this is something that is really the necessity of the county, to budget out or to acknowledge the fact that this may not take place on the road, and so people could prepare. You know, I guess the worst thing that you ever want to happen in any job or any type of function is that all of a sudden you wake up and there's a meeting and all of a sudden you're done. So right now I think you have to continue to fund the libraries. But with the reality that, again, things are changing and we have to find different ways to make it as efficient without having to spend as much money as we had in the past.
Okay. On the subject of county workforce, do you think there's an appropriate benefit package for county employees in terms of number of vacation days, number of sick days?
You know, I can honestly not tell you what they're like right now, what's appropriate. You know, I think there's 7 unions in the county, if I'm not mistaken, approximately. There's no question that with contracts coming up, that they need to be, we need to look at make some changes. I mean, the contracts need to be fair, and I think that's the key thing. But you know, the days of no co-pays are over. You know, people have to look at what's more important: having a job or starting to contribute more. As I said before, with the budget, 70 to 80% of that budget's fixed. That there's not much you could talk about. So that's why it's extremely important that when you're negotiating these contracts, you're negotiating them fairly, both to the employees as well as the taxpayers.
If elected, you're serving on this group. Will you bring a particular issue to the board? There are some people who are saying we need to talk about natural gas. We need to talk about the elimination of property taxes. Do you feel that there's an issue that you're passionate about that you want to bring to the board, or is it up to the manager to bring up the issues and then the board discuss them? You
know, my reason for running for this council is to make sure that this new government gets off on the right track. Goes back to my experience, and so I'm not coming in here with a specific issue or an agenda that I want to see ramped up. I think that every and any council member, as well as any person from the public, has a right to bring up something. I'm not coming in with anything specific. Again, the goal is to make sure this transition gets off on a smooth start, that we put the right people in place, we work on the budgets, and you know, then we'll continue to move forward. But I don't have an agenda.
If you're elected to the group, would you want to serve as its chairperson? And if not, what qualities would you be looking for in a chair? Yeah.
You know, I haven't really thought about would I take it? Absolutely. I feel that the chair, number one, is equal to all other council members. I do not want a chair who feels that this person has any more authority. You have one vote, just like everyone else. Number two, communication is extremely important. The one thing, and you've seen, I've been vocal, and I'll continue to be vocal, and I'll ask questions when we're not seeing what we need to. One thing I will say, I have a track record with when I chaired the personnel recruiting subcommittee. My meetings were totally open, a lot of dialogue, not shutting out the public. The public was involved with being able to ask questions. So, that's what I feel is important with the manager. I mean, especially with 11 people, communication. And I'll say this. Although I've been, and not putting anyone down, my biggest pet peeves throughout the study commission as well as the transition have been the fact that a lot of decisions have been made kind of behind the scenes, and that's been public by other members, and that's something that really has ticked me off, and I've been vocal about it and kind of getting on them about it. So it is so important to have the manager be to communicate and be open, and just basically the role is to run the meetings and share the information. That's all I feel that the manager should be doing.
On the subject of the communication, obviously there's always a lot of media interest in what the county's operations are, but that'll be amplified starting January next year with this new group. What do you think is the appropriate way for the council to get out its messages? Should it find a spokesperson and not just the Times leader, but all the media outlets work through a spokesperson, or should every council member up there be talking to the media as well? Council members are elected officials. Unless you all ran as a team, every council member has the right to speak up. And so actually, I do think that on certain items, usually you go to the chair to discuss the overview, but unless you're having 11 people always voting the same way, which if you find that to take place, there's a problem. You should definitely be able to speak to the council. They speak to they're elected by the people. Each person has their own opinions. You need to be able to get different sides of the story to the public. So it would upset me if someone tries to set up one person to put on a smiley face when, and quite honestly, you're not always going to have perfect things take place. Questions from the group right now?
How much you plan to spend on this campaign?
Probably in this general, probably like $6,000. Signs, obviously media, radio, and some other type of outlets. I mean, my goal is, this is a big county, and my frustration with the campaign, quite frankly, is with so many people are confused. I truly believe that I have some experience and qualifications, and that's what I'm trying to get out to the public, and I'm hoping it's not a popularity contest. So I do feel that it's important to spend some money to get the message out.
Are you taking donations?
Yep.
From any limits on those?
No. My highest limit was from a person in the Hazleton area, Evelyn Graham. She donates. She's given me $2,000. It's public information. Other than that, most of my donations are coming from friends, family, $25 to $100, and so forth. So, and again, coming from Lower Luzerne County, there's a lot of people want to make sure that there's a voice, and I want to make that clear too. This is one county, and if I'm elected, I'd be a voice for down there, but the decisions that will be made will be for the benefit of the entire county. And I hope to be able to bring this county together, because quite honestly, it bothers me, even from people down in Lower Luzerne County saying, well, we're forgotten about. And that's not really the case, or they feel like, well, they don't care. It's not the case. So I hope to be able to bring the county as one and make decisions as one.
Why do you think there's that perception? And I think we saw that in the primary, that people tend to vote, if they don't know the name, they don't know the platform, they vote for geography.
No question about it. They do, and especially when I'm in a big race, you'll see a correlation with that. Now, again, on the ballot this time, the cities aren't next to the names, so I don't know how much that will play into it if you don't know. It really shouldn't be about, first of all, it shouldn't be about where you live, and it shouldn't be about party. And I hope this isn't a party politics thing, because I'm certainly not one of those guys. It needs to be about the people who have the most qualifications, who have the background, and who certainly don't have an agenda. And obviously, I think it's fair to say you have to make ethical decisions. That goes without saying.
Were you comfortable with the campaign in the spring in the way that other candidates conducted themselves? Was there anything unusual or you thought inappropriate?
No, I thought, this race was, everyone's professional. I'm happy to see the candidates out there. I don't think anyone has done anything to directly tried to hurt anyone. I think everyone's just kind of run their own campaign, which I'm happy with. Again, you know, we have a forum tonight. We had one. The tough part is that you're only able to speak 2 to 3 minutes. I would like to, I wish it was a smaller number of people. I wish they were able to have some debates and to really talk about some of these issues, and so people can make stances. You know, I do think that there are some good qualified candidates. There's some that I really don't think, based off of their stances, really have an understanding. And I space that off of, again, being involved with all these committees. I could tell you of the 28 candidates, how many have been involved with both the study commission and going on to the, especially the transition. How many of these candidates haven't even showed up at any of these transition meetings, which tells me, do they really care about this? Are they really involved? And sometimes, quite frankly, some of their statements as to what they're going to do don't even fall in line with the way the charter reads. So it does, personally, as a taxpayer and a voter, it does concern me.
Any other questions from the group? Are you satisfied with the way we conduct these meetings, that we ask the appropriate questions, you got a chance to answer?
Absolutely. I'm happy that the newspapers are doing this, because I think it's important that the public sees, it breaks it down as to people's stances, definitely.
Anything that we didn't ask about, anything on your sheet here that we didn't mention, or anything that you want to emphasize? You know, I think just if the one thing that I'd like to emphasize, I talked about my experience with the home loan, my background in the financial services. A lot of people are coming in and they're talking ethics, transparency. I have a track record with that. I think that one thing that I'm very proud of over the last 2.5 years, if you saw followed me, you may not have agreed with all or some of my stances, but I've been very vocal, and I'll continue to be vocal. I've been criticized for asking questions. I will ask questions. I drive up from Hazleton to these meetings, and every 2 weeks we have a meeting that lasts 40 minutes, and I'm going to ask questions, and so that will continue. And again, I think that if you follow me, going back to, I've been totally independent, and I'm so proud of that, that I come in and I'm going to make decisions based off of what I feel is best. I'm not, you know, if the transition, or in the study commission, I was pretty much in a minority, but then everyone was surprised because I came out and supported it, because in the big picture I thought it was better. And so, you know, at one time I was against Jim Haggerty, and Walter Griffith was my friend, and then I come out and I jump on, I'm supporting this home rule, and Walter was upset with me. And that's me. I'm no one's rubber stamp. I'm going to be vocal, and that's what I'm going to continue to bring to the table. And I think to sum it up is, when you look at all the candidates, I have the experience with the home rule. I'm qualified when it comes to the financial background, and altogether I'm prepared for this. And it goes back to, this is going to be a brand new start from the beginning, 11 council on January 2nd. I'm prepared to come in and to be able to do this job.